Hello, everyone. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate Real Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Our mantra is to educate, enlighten, and entertain. The views of the guest may not represent those of the host or station. Folks, you'll have to bear with me. I don't know why my throat got kind of sore last night, so I'm kind of raspy. But I am blessed and grateful to be here talking to you all and to have my special guest on with me today. And before I introduce my guest, I have to share something. You know, I've interviewed a lot of caregivers who started their businesses. And in my opinion, and I've said this on my show before, if I was looking for a business, I want to go to a person who has walked the walk, who knows what I'm going through, and who has a special type of empathy because they were a caregiver. And that's just my personal opinion. And with me today is Neal Shah, who was a caregiver. That's why he started his company. He is CEO and co-founder of CareYaya's, a tech startup and applied research lab focused on enhancing care delivery. Neal is a former hedge fund manager turned social entrepreneur. He co-founded the company after a profoundly personal experience with caregiving. CareYaya's is also launching new applications of AI to help people better manage caregiving. And their mission is to empower family caregivers and create a better future for care. What such a necessary service. I want to welcome you, Neal Shah, to Chatting with Betsy.
Thanks, Betsy. Really appreciate you having me on, and excited to tell people about our mission and hope we can help.
Yes, I say this, Neal, all the time. I find personally the people who went through caregiving saw a need for something that they didn't have available to them and started their company, started a business to help caregivers because they know what it's like, and you know what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a plus to me. That is a huge plus. And I just want to tell the audience, folks, if you haven't already been a caregiver, you will be, or you're going to need one. And you need to listen to Neal Shah today. So I want to ask you about your background, Neal. What was your caregiving experience?
Sure.
That you had.
Yeah. So thanks for asking. You know, I have a non-traditional background. Actually, I up until my mid-30s, I was actually a hedge fund manager in New York City. So I'll kind of give you a quick overview, but to rewind. I
live in New Jersey.
Oh, you live in New Jersey? Okay, great. Yeah, I used to live in Manhattan since my early 20s, up until I was mid-30s. And, I kind of, before I became a caregiver, I was running a $250 million hedge fund, investing across healthcare, technology, and other industries. And, so it's like a personal experience and mission for me. But prior to that, I had a completely different career, which was, grew up in North Carolina, went to school at Penn, and then found myself in New York doing investment banking right after college, was good at it, very quickly got hired by hedge funds to invest across a variety of industries. By my late 20s, by the time I was 27, I became a partner at a multi-billion-dollar fund where I was running a portfolio of turnaround and kind of restructuring investments. And then throughout the financial crisis, I was the only person on the team with that skill set. So I, kind of ended up managing a lot of capital and had very successful investments to the point where one of the investors in the fund backed me to start my own fund by the time I was 31. And I grew that fund from one investor and $10 million in capital to multiple investors and was running $250 million by the time I was 35. So I was kind of on the fast track of in finance. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was really
that's
good
something.
At it. It was, I enjoyed the work. I thought it was very interesting intellectually. But personal circumstances, led me to leave my career behind, and it was really two care experiences. In my early 30s, I helped my family navigate care for my grandfather through dementia kidney failure, cancer, and then end of life care. And really, I was like the research person in the family, finding resources and, figuring out how we could handle it. And then, most of the direct care burden fell on my mom. And she left her career to become a caregiver. And what was supposed to be a short-term stint turned into a multi-year process. And, after that, she was not able to kind of get back into the workforce. And it was just like the toll it took on us, emotionally, physically, just kind of time. And really the interaction with the care industry, like the lack of ability to get good help really made me interested in, kind of caregiving as like a societal challenge and also a kind of like innovation opportunity. So that's my first foray. And at the time I was still running my fund. So I was kind of like researching what are the care companies and why isn't this being done well. And then it hit me very personally when at 35, my wife became severely ill and went through years of cancer, hospitalizations, multiple different therapies, that didn't work, stints in the ICU, at one point was in a medical coma. And I kept taking sabbaticals from running my fund to be her caregiver. And, I just found it was very hard to get good care help. I thought that, this is something where quality really makes a difference in the outcome. So I ended up taking a bunch of sabbaticals and then ultimately wound down my fund and became my wife's full-time caregiver for a couple of years. And it was it was very difficult, emotionally. I think it was very difficult kind of like financially after having had that career to just kind of, she wasn't working, I wasn't working. But thankfully, knock on wood, she finally had a successful outcome and, has now been in remission for a few years. And that was really what was the inspiration to say, okay, now I've experienced the problem intellectually, I've experienced the problem secondhand, and then I've also now directly experienced the problem firsthand. And I realized just like how broken our care economy is, and I have skills that I can use to fix that instead of just like being a passive investor in other businesses. So that really led, kind of almost a shift of my life work to focus on caregiving. And, I was kind of like made a very conscious decision of, okay, now I'm going to just like focus my energy and my skills on building a better solution and like solving the problem at scale.
Wow, that is some story. I'm glad your wife is doing okay now, and sorry about your grandfather. Yes, when you become a caregiver, especially when you were caregiving, when I was caregiving, there you see how broken the healthcare system is, how unreliable, how difficult it is to have reliable services. I wish there was CareYaya in my area for my husband. My son and I did a tag team of taking care of my husband, Matt. Excuse me. And it's very difficult. You probably know this, Neal, that mortality rate among caregivers is like 63%. It's even higher the older you are. As you know, let's face it, I'm a baby boomer. I'm 67, and I've already been a caregiver a couple of times. Still a caregiver for my son, who had the cognitive disability, but he's great. And, the services just aren't there. And how do you get reliable help? And what
I agree.
I agree.
It's a challenge. It's a $600 billion problem. It's crazy how big the care economy and the care need is. And, can't believe that in 2025 we don't have good services set up.
Exactly. And as people are aging, and I'm one of them, which is, I have to laugh because when I hear people talk about seniors and aging in place, I'm like, wow, that's me now. Hard to wrap my head around that. It's difficult. And the more, baby boomers, we're a large group of people, and we don't want to be in a facility. And I believe we're going to change the way care is being focused. We want to stay at home, but we need reliable help. And CareYaya sounds fantastic. How did you come up with that name?
Sure.
I like the name.
I wanted something. I wanted something positive, fun, playful. I feel like a lot of the care industry, sometimes the names are like a little more sad or focused on kind of like the care need as opposed to like a positivity. So one, it's just the word yeah twice. It's fun and playful and seems more new age and kind of tech oriented. But also the word Yaya means grandmother in Greek. The word Yaya also means caregiver in Hindi and Swahili and Thai. So it has kind of multiple meanings in different languages. And then also YAYA is an acronym for You Are Your Advocate, which I thought was like the future of self-directed care. So the name just had like a bunch of like positive connotations. So yeah, it was a lot of fun having that. And it's just like saying the word yeah twice, which is fun. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that. You are your advocate. That's true. We need to be advocates. We used to say that all the time. Because when I heard your name, CareYaya, I used to work in a preschool, and one of the students called her grandma Yaya.
That's right.
And that's
right. There you go.
That's what made me think of that. What I really like when I've read about your company is that you hire college students. And I think that is great because I used to say a long time ago that anyone going into social work to be a doctor, anyone in the medical community, I felt should have experience being with a caregiving family, especially, I have a sense of humor, although it's twisted, Neal, especially during a full moon, so that you can know, so they can know what it is like and what caregivers experience daily. And the only way to know that is to be with the family. So what a great education these college students are getting. They're getting an education you can't get in a classroom. That's for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. And if you think about kind of, these students are, we have all health careers focused students. So these are going to be our future doctors, our nurses, our physician assistants, social workers, physical therapists. These are going to be the future clinical professionals of America. And, I think that it's one thing to work at a hospital, while you're in school and be a nurse aide and, do your shifts where you're kind of like 5, 10, 15 minutes in and out of a patient's room, but I feel like really, that what's lacking in today's clinical system is like the bedside manner and the empathy. And I think that really comes from spending a lot of time with someone. You got to spend time with someone in their home. You got to spend time with someone around their family. You got to spend time with someone consistently, hours and hours at a time, days and weeks and months, and really building a relationship. And I feel like that's when you start seeing beyond the disease and, seeing beyond the disability and start seeing the person as a person and start seeing the family and both the joys and the sorrows and the stresses and everything in between. And I think that, today, like, healthcare has become so kind of clinical, in a good sense or a bad sense. But, when you see somebody for 5-10 minutes and you view them as this is a cancer patient, that's very different than when you take care of someone living with terminal cancer and you see them for 6 months, 3 days a week at 5-hour shifts and see all the life experiences they're going through. And I think that builds a lot of empathy, and hopefully that builds better doctors of the future and better nurses and people who carry that empathy with them into the rest of their life and their work. So, yeah, I think it's awesome. Yeah, that's the most fun aspect of running the program.
Yes, I absolutely agree. How do you vet the college students and match them with the, for like a better word, match them with the family that would be best for their experience?
Sure. Yes. So we started it very locally. So I'm in the Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina area. So in the first year, we were just running it here at Duke University and UNC Chapel Hill. Now, thankfully, after 3 years of hard work, we are nationwide. We have over 30,000 students on the CareYaya's platform, and we're available kind of in your area in New Jersey. We're in New York City. We're now in Florida. We're in Texas. We're all over California. And then we're expanding to other states like Michigan, Ohio, kind of wherever there's like a top 50 university in the country. We are at now over 30 of the top 50 schools and spreading, kind of outward. What we do is, we usually, the students learn about us from the pre-health career advisors at the university. So we do a lot of close collaborations with the universities, biology professors, chemistry professors, career advising, as well as like a lot of the student clubs, like the pre-medical, societies will be at different universities, nursing club, pre-physician assistant club, physical therapy. So, people kind of like hear about it through trusted sources, and we build relations with those trusted sources, so they send referrals. Then we do a multi-step vetting process where we background check everyone that applies. We verify enrollment at the university that we're partnering with, so we don't just kind of let anyone on. And then we also do extensive video-based interviews and kind of like use a lot of technology that we've built over time to kind of like give a score and a rating based on how we observe people are performing out in the field. So that's kind of the cool thing about building all this with technology, is that the technology can do a lot of analytics for you and predict based on how somebody responded to certain questions. Are they likely to be reliable? Are they likely to be on time? Are they likely to be rated well by families, et cetera? And then we use a lot of like personality prediction based on the family that's being onboarded, the personality of the person that's being cared for, and then the personality of the student, and then kind of like doing educated guessing using technology and analytics on are they likely to be a good fit. The cool thing about this is that because it's like a very technology-forward system, there's a tremendous amount of data being generated. So the data can kind of like keep refining the matching and kind of like the prediction algorithms, which then makes for a better experience. And like I would say, you know, it's kind of cool to do this with technology because our ratings and like reliability are through the roof because like the tech is actually fairly accurate. And, you know, like we have like tons of like very, 4.9 out of 5-star Google reviews. We have, you know, now over, tens of thousands of care sessions on the platform. Each session is rated by a family and it's averaging like, 4.8 something internally. So it's like really cool to see how you can use technology to like improve care quality and significantly reduce the administrative overhead. You know, that's like my favorite part about the whole thing is that the cost of care through CareYaya in most cities, like let's say New York City, for example, the prevailing cost through a local care agency might be like $40 to $45 an hour, where that agency is paying less than half. You know, and by the way, that's not the money's not going to the caregiver, right? They're paying less than half to the caregiver. All that money is being eaten up by administrative overhead, profit margins of the agency, sales, marketing, advertising, all that stuff, right? So you as a person paying $43 an hour are underlying just paying the care worker maybe $17, and then the rest of your money is being wasted. $26 an hour is going somewhere into the ether, so it's not going to your care. CareYaya is the opposite. You book in New York City, you get a Columbia social work student, and it's $20 an hour, and you pay them directly. Like we charge no fees. So it's kind of like cool in the sense of we have like streamlined the administrative overhead costs down so much to the point where families, and then of course we are just taking the hit on that, which is like a different, interesting challenge, but we've kind of gotten social impact funding and grants and everything to scale our platform, but we're delivering way, way better care at 30 to 50% lower rates in most markets so that way more families can get the help. And critically, the caregivers get to earn every dollar that family pays, so the caregivers love it. So it kind of creates like a very virtuous cycle, if you will, where caregivers are happy, they're better paid, families are paying less, so they're happy, they can afford it. There's full price transparency. There's tons of like data, ratings, reviews, optimized matching. So it's really cool to build something like this. And then it's because it's technology, it can run with like a very, very low overhead, so it can serve a lot of people and scale. Our goal is like over the next couple of years to scale this all over the country and get 500,000 students on it.
That sounds awesome. I know what you're saying, Neal, is 100% true because I worked as a licensed practical nurse. I checked into private duty at one time. Back then, I'm talking many, many years ago, they would pay the agency, say, $40 to $60 for me, and I would only get maybe $20, $25. So absolutely, they're not getting the person who's working is not getting that $50, $60 an hour, or 20 or whatever. Their rate is. And how do you train the students? Because I'm sure it's probably more like companion service.
Yes, it's only companion right now. So we don't offer clinical or higher acuity. Usually, if we get somebody who has higher needs, we would refer them out to like a local care agency or other care options, help them find caregivers on their own. But right now, we only do companion level care because we feel like that's just something that we wanted to be inclusive of like all the students. And I think that there is like an interesting thing where if you make the students have only CNAs or whatever, then you exclude a lot of students who are well-intentioned and could be great companions, but they don't have the funds to kind of go pursue the certification during college, right? So companion level only, which, by the way, we did a lot of research with AARP, and we're backed by AARP. We've actually received some funding from them through the Age Tech Collaborative Program. And
wow.
their statistics suggest 61% of the cumulative hours that are being cared for older adults are companion care. So it's actually like huge market. If you think about a $600 billion market of care for older adults, 61% being companion, that's a market we can serve very well. So, to your point, we do companion level only. How do we train them? We give them a lot of video-based instruction and curriculum. So we have worked closely with UCLA, Alzheimer's and Dementia Center, and there's a great training curriculum available for free for anyone on YouTube. So we give them those modules. We also received a grant from the National Institute on Aging and Johns Hopkins University to build the first ever AI-powered dementia caregiver training tool, which we called Yaya Guide. So under that grant, we've developed a lot of personalized curriculum, which takes a student from the beginning, quickly figures out what their skill level is, what they know about dementia care, what they don't know, then serves up personalized content to them. Many people, kind of in that whole process called it like what our proposal is like similar like the Duolingo of dementia care. I don't know if you're familiar with that app, but it's like a language learning app that has become very popular among Gen Z students for how do you learn Spanish and how do you learn other languages. And it's like, kind of what they call bite-sized micro-learning modules that you can, do 1 minute here, 2 minutes here, 5 minutes here to learn something, and then build up your skills, take little quizzes, gamified experience. So we built that to train the students. So those are kind of like the most, pertinent training methods. And yeah, they're going like really well. Like a lot of students like feel like highly confident and well equipped after that. And of course, they also learn from doing the care themselves. Like a lot of times the families, because they know these are students, they'll be going out of their way to explain, how things work. And also because we're running this, a lot of times the medical schools will reach out to us and host webinars. So we oftentimes have webinars with like doctors at Duke University Medical School, again, Johns Hopkins, sometimes it's Stanford Medicine. And, it'll be like geriatrics will put on a webinar of like, okay, X, Y, Z, things you need to look for in geriatrics, palliative care will put on a webinar. So yeah, it's really awesome. Like when we build something like this, like there's so much interest from the existing kind of like universities as well as like medical schools to instruct and kind of like educate the students on how they can do a better job on care. And then there's also like a lot of like grant funding we've received to build out better training programs, which is like really awesome.
That's really exciting. You must be so proud of yourself. I mean, from a tragic situation, you have this wonderful company helping thousands of people. And this is what
it's really awesome.
You're welcome. This is what I talk about all the time, Neal, that I just love to interview people who had, well, not that I like that they had an unfortunate event, but they had an unfortunate event and turned it into a life-changing experience and going out and serving others and helping others. I mean, how important is this? I mean, I could tell you personally, as a former caregiver, I could have used CareYaya. And I think when you have a young, vibrant college student, not to knock down older workers because, of my age.
Yeah, we need everyone.
Know how much, you know how much energy they bring into your house? They would bring such energy to someone, especially if someone has any kind of dementia. And I think they have more patience. And because they are getting well paid, I think you won't have that turnaround, like you have with other agencies. And I just think that's just great. Now, are the students allowed to drive the clients to, say, to a movie or a restaurant?
Great question. So because we're running it kind of for free in terms of we don't charge any fees or markups and the students are getting all the compensation, we decided not to kind of like take the liability of that on the student side because the insurance cost is very high. So we've done a partnership with Lyft where the students are able to call the Lyfts and get like a better rate to take the person. So that way it's almost like let the driving companies be good at the driving, and we'll let the students be good at kind of like the caregiving side. So the students on their own can go do errands in terms of if somebody needs something at the grocery store and things like that. But, it's like two high-risk populations to directly ensure if an older adult gets into a car with somebody who's just started driving a few years ago, it's like the insurance costs are so high.
Right.
So then for now, we're just kind of like partnering with rideshare companies to handle that.
Oh.
But at some point, we may introduce the feature. But for now, it's just kind of like partnership, which works pretty well.
Yeah, well, just to, be in the home and give the caregiver a break is just so important because, like I said, and I'm going to keep saying it, folks, the mortality rate for a caregiver is high. That is the fact.
Yes.
That is a harsh reality. And I'll tell you what, I cared for my mother-in-law for 5 years. I cared for my husband for 10. Neal, I thank God I'm sitting here talking to you. I thank God that that I'm pretty, in good shape. I have some minor issues, but you know what? I'm a lot better off than a lot of caregivers. Could tell, stories of so many caregivers whose health deteriorated right after they lost a loved one. And they weren't around.
No, I think, look, these are stats. These are like...
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Neal.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yes.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, these are stats. Like, we did a lot of research with AARP on this, and the interesting stat was 33% of caregivers within 1 year of taking care of a loved one develop significant mental health challenges, and 25% of them develop physical health challenges. So think about that. I mean, I see this every day. It's like, just like literally last week I was talking to a gentleman in his early 60s taking care of his wife with early onset dementia. And, he's been doing it for like now 2 years. We help him out a bunch, which is awesome. But he's just so stressed all the time. Meanwhile, she's like very calm, very calm. Like, of course, she's like losing some of her cognitive abilities. But in terms of like overall stress and happiness level, he's bearing the brunt of it. And, he had to check himself in the ER. And then they kept him in the hospital for monitoring for 4 days because of heart issue. And during that time, he was reaching out to us, so worried about his wife and are there going to be caregivers and what are they doing in this that. So, it's just kind of like it really like hits home that the caregiver is bearing so much strain, when we're worrying constantly about the person that they're caring for. And, I mean, that has to have second-order impacts on heart, on stress level, on sleep quality. I've heard another person we help for with care. We do a lot of overnight care, by the way, which is really interesting that I would have never guessed that. But college students, as you can imagine, sometimes have classes during the day, different schedules and all that. So, of course, they'll do the care. But like whenever a Thursday afternoon care session goes on our site, it might have to go out to 10 different students before somebody can accept. But overnight, everybody's available, and they want to do it. They can sometimes do homework and other stuff during that time. So that's a very popular thing people are using CareYaya for. And I found one thing is I talked to some of the people who get overnight care for like a spouse with dementia, and literally will hear from their friends in the dementia support group that, oh, wow, Mark feels like a totally different person now since he started getting CareYaya because he can actually sleep, that, spouse has a caregiver around. And, same with like the sons and daughters. So it's been really interesting to see that, by getting good care, I think you can get a break as the family caregiver. And I think that's really, like, of course, the person needs the care too, but I think that sometimes the indirect effect of the solution is that it relieves a significant amount of the stress on the family caregiver, which I feel like is under-focused on by our current healthcare system. That everybody thinks about the person that has the illness, but no one thinks about the caregiver.
Absolutely, Neal. I could hug you. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. I remember my neurologist. This is when Matt was still alive, and he started asking me, "Well, how are you doing, Betsy?" Like now they're starting his wife as a psychiatrist at Rutgers Behavioral Health, and he said that they're starting to focus on the caregiver and their needs and how they can help the caregiver with support. It is, and it's about time that the tide is very slowly changing, but I'm a Jersey girl, Neal, so I tell it straight up and like it is. And I've said this in my show many times, and I'm going to say it again. Self-care, folks, is not selfish. It is a matter of your life and death. That's how serious self-care is. And if you want to enjoy life after caregiving, and you have every right to do so, and life during caregiving, you need to take care of yourself. And if that means having a college student help you, then do it. I think, I mean, you know, people might say, oh, well, I can't afford $20 to pay. Well, can you afford to be sick? Can you afford that, to be in a hospital? I mean, it might sound harsh, but this is the reality, folks.
And you know what? If you're not around, who's going to take care of your loved one? You know, like, it's
absolutely
actually even logical, like, even unselfishly, you need to be healthy so that you can kind of continue, you know, caring for the one you love. And I think that you're right. Like, I think there's a lot of times caregivers don't think about the self-care because they're just so busy dealing with crisis to crisis. And I think that it is important both for, like, your own sustainability of the care situation, both for your sustainability of your health after the care situation is over. I think that, it's something that's, like, very under-discussed. So, it's like people are suffering in silence, you know, and people don't talk. I think the other challenging thing about caregiving I found, even when I was going through caregiving for my wife, it's like people don't talk about it because there's, like, a social shame or a stigma. Like, you don't tell your coworkers what you're going through because you feel like you'll be judged. You know, you might not tell your boss what you're going through because you feel like people will think, oh, you're going to be distracted doing other stuff. So, you know, a lot of people keep it to themselves. Oftentimes I find a lot of people, like, lose friendships and relationships because you're, like, the sad person at the group gathering that's talking about the challenges where everybody else, and I found this especially from, like, a middle-aged caregiving perspective where, you know, in our mid-30s, most of my friends were having kids and talking about the vacations that were going on. And I went through years where, you know, I was talking about my wife's illness, and that's just not fun, you know. So, like, you find, like, a social stigma there where people kind of gradually, even not out of bad intentions or anything, but people just kind of distance themselves because you're going through a tough time, and sometimes people don't want to hear that. So I think, you find yourself increasingly isolated, and I think that there has to be, like, society-wide way more recognition of this and support of this because millions of people are in this situation. It's not like this isn't 1 in 5 Americans, I think, are, like, dealing with some form of long-term care for a loved one, and I think that's, like, you know, there needs to be better recognition of that.
Oh, I agree 100%. Absolutely. You do become isolated, and I talked about that, like, 8 years ago, you know, way before the pandemic. Caregivers have felt isolated, abandoned, and, you know, when COVID happened, people got a taste of that. Then they didn't like it. And me being who I am, I say, well, now how do you think a caregiver feels all the time? You know? This is how we felt. I'm nosy, Neal. Do you know offhand what colleges in New Jersey students or?
So yes, we're at Rutgers, we're at Fair State, and then we are also just in New York City where we started. We're at Columbia and Fordham and Hunter College, and then we're expanding kind of gradually. It extends kind of like mostly word of mouth, like either wherever a bunch of families sign up to get the care, then we'll, like, be building relationships with the nearby university, or sometimes the university will reach out because they have, you know, the professors and pre-health advisors have relations with other universities. So we kind of build both ways. But I think that, you know, between New York and New Jersey, that might be, like, ultimately, like, a huge opportunity for us because there's just so many students in a geographically dense area and such a unaffordable care market, you know, otherwise, you know, in terms of, like, the prevailing kind of, like, agency-based rates are often north of $40 an hour. So, you know, we can run our model and, like, serve a lot of people who, you know, kind of fall through the gaps there in the care economy and may not be able to afford agency-based care. I'd say most of the people who use CareYaya are either looking for solutions on their own, so this just makes it a lot easier, safer, and more vetted to do it instead of just posting up flyers at your local school or going to care.com and just trying to find random people. And then some people are just like, hey, you know, with agencies I can only afford so much, or I can't afford it. And, you know, with this I can. So I think that we also have that. But we are like spreading. We're relatively new to the New York, New Jersey area, as if only like 3 or 4 months ago. But like there was like a big segment that CNBC did about our work, and that really launched the New York, New Jersey market for us. So that's pretty cool.
Wow. Well, congratulations. I know, like, I think a year or two ago, my local paper, you're welcome, there was a big article about aging in New Jersey. And I forgot the amount, but it's in the millions of how many seniors there are. I'm one of them now, but and we'll be needing, care. This is really, I'm excited, Neal. I'm so glad I'm talking to you because I know there's a need for this in my area. There's definitely a need. There was a man, this is last year in Walgreens. His wife was with him. She had Alzheimer's, and he said, I have no help. I'm alone.
Wow.
And he's not the only one. There's people who are in need of services, and they don't know where to go. They don't know where to turn to, and CareYaya is an excellent resource. Now, what happens during the summertime when the students go home?
Great question, actually. So this was a challenge in the first year or so of building it, because in the first year we were only at 2 universities, Duke University and UNC Chapel Hill. And when the students went home, the availability of number of students dropped quite a bit. But to a pleasant surprise, about 15 to 20% of them stayed on campus, for a variety of reasons, just like socially, or take a summer class here or there, or work part-time jobs. So, and then whoever stayed, because they didn't have class, they had a lot more time. So on balance, in the first year or two while we were running it locally, it netted out, where the number of students dropped, but the ones that are available increased their hours per week 4 or 5 times, so then the same amount of care was being delivered. Then, as we started spreading into other geographies, now there's an even cooler thing, where there's a migration within the CareYaya's system, where if there's a student at Emory University in Atlanta, but mom and dad's from New York, and then they come back to New York, or there's a student from New Jersey who's going to school at Duke, but they're back home for the summer, or same thing with if we're in San Francisco and there might be a student who goes to the University of Michigan, but they're back in San Francisco for the summer. So now, because we have 30,000 students all over the country, as they go back home for the summer, most of them are actually in places where CareYaya is available, and because they've done it during the school year, many of them will do a lot of it during the summer. So generally near larger city areas, we have found there to be an increase in the availability of care over the summer, because the students kind of move around. And that's one of the benefits of running a program like this nationally, is that if they're on it at University of Michigan and then they came back home to, kind of Summit, New Jersey, okay, well, if there's care going on there, they're going to do a lot of it, because they're like, oh, I already know this program, and I'm already in the program. So I don't have to go back home to Summit and apply to local jobs. I can just keep doing this. So I'd say, pleasant surprise that this past summer was the first test, and that went really well, where care actually went up over the summer. So that was really cool.
That is cool. Now, is there a supervisor that comes around and checks up on the student and how the family is doing, how they're connecting and getting along?
It's all through technology, so that's kind of the one pro and con of doing it this way, is that in order to streamline the cost and keep just the cost super, super low, all of it is ratings that the family leaves for the students and the students leave for the families. We will manually insert them ourselves and go check if there are lower ratings. So, if on the family side, if they rate a student less than 4 stars out of 5 more than once, we'll reach out and see what's going on, and if we don't have a good explanation, we'll deactivate, the student's profile, and they're not kind of allowed to be on a care platform again. So pleased to say, that's extremely infrequent. We don't have to do that much, and the quality of the care from the students is really good. But based on empowering the families to do it and to leave reviews, we feel okay, that's a great way to get data from the market of okay, how are people liking the care? So I
like that. I like that both the family and the student have input.
Yes.
Because sometimes, you could have a personality clash that happens sometimes, and sometimes, it might take, a couple of times to get, the right fit, just like with the therapist. Maybe the first therapist you go to isn't, the one for you. This is so a mind-blowing for me because just like that's what I love about doing my show, Neal, is I love to tell people about resources that I wish were available when I was caregiving, and now they are available. And now you will be listed as a resource on Passion World Talk Radio Network. They look up caregiving.
Thank you.
You're going to be, you're welcome. Your name will come up. And, you know, it's just, I wish I could hug you because this is so needed. And not just that, it's, you know, intergenerational. How much can a college student, what benefit to learn from another generation? Because I've interviewed somebody about that, you know, intergenerational relationships and friendships, what they can learn. I know I used to love to hear my grandmother's stories, to hear stories to gain wisdom from another generation. This is just what an incredible learning experience. This is great for college students. Neal, how does a college student or family contact you to see if CareYaya is a fit for them and to know more information?
Sure. So both sides would go to our website. It's www.careyaya.org, CareYaya.org. And, you know, they can sign up on the site. You know, both the family can sign up to get care. The student can sign up and apply to be the caregiver. Our process will then kind of check, okay, are we at that student's university? If not, they'll go on a wait list. And then when we get enough, you know, interest from a university on a wait list, we might reach out and build relationships. And then same with the family. The family can check through zip code. Are we available there? And then if not, they'll get on a wait list. And then if they kind of make it through, then we'll have onboarding processes with people on our team that'll reach out to them and onboard them to see if it's a good fit. And then they can also follow us on social media. We're like pretty active if they want to learn more about our work. You know, I'm reasonably active on LinkedIn. So, you know, you can just follow like Neal, Neal, middle initial K, and then last name Shah, Shah. So people can look up Neal K. Shah on LinkedIn. With CareYaya, I post a lot about different topics and kind of I do a lot of caregiving advocacy, you know, because I'm like very passionate about the topic and I feel like it's under discussed in society. And then I also talk about other initiatives. You know, we're always launching new initiatives. Like recently we've been realizing, obviously in light of all the stuff happening in the news regarding health insurance and denied claims, you know, we've been doing a lot of research around that, and that's something that we learned a lot of our population is dealing with, where healthcare claims are being denied at scale, you know, under Medicare Advantage plans. Even for the caregivers themselves, a lot of middle-aged people are dealing with denials for their own health issues. And, you know, so as we kind of like learn and understand the needs of people, you know, here's a cool thing, kind of just completely unrelated, where we went down a rabbit hole on this over the last 2 months, and we realized like so many of our people using CareYaya are dealing with this. Even some of the students are dealing with this, by the way, believe it or not. Like I've had tons of students come out of the woodwork and saying, I just had $20,000 of claims denied for a major surgery, and the students are panicking. I'm like, I don't have that kind of money. So we then very rapidly built a technology solution. They're using AI and training AI models based on strategies to write really good appeals letters, because we realized that, you know, believe it or not, 49 million people that had a denied health insurance claim last year, less than 1% of people appealed. So can you believe that? Like people don't know their rights, that they don't know when, you know, Humana or United Healthcare or somebody just says, okay, I deny this coverage, you can actually appeal. And then of the people who bother to appeal, half of them win. So we were like, okay, this sucks. Like people are scared to appeal. They don't know how to do it. They don't have a doctor in the family. They think it's going to take 20 hours to write a letter and all that. So we trained AI models to do this for you. And we just kind of rolled out this product, which we call Counterforce Health. And, you know, just kind of hosted on a site. And, you know, it's free to use. Like it cost us some money, but we're like, okay, whatever. We'll just go get a grant and give it away. And so now anyone can come to the site and in 2 minutes they can upload their denial letter from a health insurer, whatever the issue is, upload any backup, background documentation like the coverage of the policy and any other notes from doctors, and then it'll knock out in 2 minutes a very detailed 6 to 10 page appeal letter citing a tremendous amount of medical necessity, kind of like references from journals, going through policy and pointing out parts of the policy where this says it should be covered. And then, you can kind of print that out and, fax it or mail it in. And, the win rates are pretty good. So we do a lot of stuff like that's like very care advocacy focused because we realize like a lot of these caregivers are just so stressed. And I've dealt with this myself when I was caring for my wife. Like sometimes I would get these claim denials letters and I just like spend hours on the phone fighting over like medication that was absolutely essential that like insurance was refusing to cover. At one point after a surgery, they were refusing to cover. And, so we're like, okay, how can we like use our technology skills to like reduce the burden for caregivers? So that's been like a cool initiative. So yeah, I think people can follow us on social media and where they can learn about like initiatives like that because we're always like looking to get information from problems people are dealing with and then use that to like inspire like where can we dedicate our energy to building a solution.
Wow, that is that is awesome. I listened to this doctor on Instagram. I had interviewed him a couple of years ago, and he said that it's funny, but it's not funny, that companies are using AI to deny claims. So someone's not even looking at them. AI is doing it.
Healthcare, big investigation.
That's terrible.
Medicare Advantage. There was a huge investigation. 90%. Can you believe that? Like in one of these investigations, and I think the government is waking up to this, by the way, because I think the Department of Justice is investigating. But like there was an investigation of older adults living in nursing homes that were on Medicare Advantage plans. 90% denial rate on certain medications and treatments, and it was because of AI. No one was even looking at it. And you know why? Because they can get away with it. Because when they do that, somebody on the other end has to spend 6 hours writing a letter. And, can you imagine like how short-staffed the nursing homes are? Like the staff doesn't have the time. The older person can't advocate for themselves. The family member is probably strapped for time. So it's like it just won't happen, right? Like no one will appeal. So that's why I think that the thing is like this is like a new technology that has been weaponized by large organizations that have the money and have the resources, but it's now about to be weaponized the other way, as in we are building the thing so that people can counter back because it doesn't cost that much. It just has to have like, a technology team build the tool, but each instance of the tool is not very expensive. It's cost like a few pennies. So we're like, okay, fine, we'll just give it away for free. Like we ate all the upfront cost to build it. Now anyone can come, to our site, which we run it as counterforcehealth.org. That's where we like hosted the tool here to kind of push back against the insurance denials. And people can just upload letters and at the click of a button, get a detailed appeal letter. So I think that you're right. Like I think this is now happening at scale because it's like an unfair fight where if the insurer just like puts an algorithm through, but meanwhile millions of people have to waste 6 hours writing stuff, that a bunch of people aren't going to do it. But if now the people can just go one click it and put the thing back, then now the insurance kind of has to pay it out. And in our case, we not only send the appeal letter to the insurer, we also send it to the state insurance regulator, so that they want to keep a check on these people. That okay, and then the insurance regulator calls us because they're like, oh wow, I had no idea like this many people are dealing with this, because then the regulator can see, hey, these are frivolous. Like the denials, a lot of them are just very frivolous, where like the insurance is like denying it, even though they know it's necessary, just thinking, well, if you don't push back, I just collect the profit. So I think that there is like, until regulation catches up, I feel like you have to have innovators just building tools to give to people so that they can fight back fairly.
Wow. Folks, I definitely check that out. Counterforcehealth.com. Is that the correct name?
.org. .org. It's a free service. Yeah. So
.org. Sorry about that.
Yeah. .org.
.org.
We don't do
okay.
.com because like all our products are free. So it's like there's no fee or commercial interest. But it's Counterforce Health. We were initially going to put it on CareYaya, but I realized that this wasn't just older Americans dealing with this. There were so many college students dealing with this. There were so many middle-aged people dealing with this. It was just like a systemic problem across the age range of the population. So we put it on as like counterforcehealth.org. Anyone can just go and sign up to use the tools, and within minutes just get a really good appeal letter, and that can make a huge social impact.
That is important. I mean, Neal, I believe you and I could do a whole show on that. We could do a whole show.
Thanks. I'd be happy to. Yeah.
On appeals. I know I had experience a few years ago, and my husband being on he was on the generic of the Exelon patch, and I had to change insurance prescription coverage. They said they would cover it. Then they said that they wouldn't cover it. Then I had to peel it, and I had to peel it again. Oh, no, try a pill. He did try a pill. He can't swallow it. It made a big difference in the cost because it was quite expensive. And, you know, they don't count on people appealing. My cardiologist told me he had a fight with the company. His patient needed a procedure. They had chest pain, they had blockage, and they're denying it. How can you deny a procedure to clear out someone's arteries or veins when they show blockage? I mean, this is just insane.
Agreed.
Excuse me.
No, agreed. I think it's totally insane. And I think, you know, to your point, like even in your husband's care, like people going through Alzheimer's and dementia now, like compared to even a few years ago, there's like actual therapies on the market, right? But they're like kind of expensive, and even though Medicare covers them, a lot of the private for-profit insurance plans are frivolously denying them. And, you know, this is kind of like tough because no one can out-of-pocket afford, you know. So I think that, these like denials have skyrocketed in the last few years. And I think it's partly because a lot of these places are like using technology, frivolously denying. Partly it's because government's been kind of asleep at the wheel, so no one's really paying attention. And the insurance company's like, well, if I can get away with it, let me do more. So I think that, you know, that is something you can change from the ground up, where you can empower people through tech tools to, okay, now anyone can kind of like appeal and write back quickly. And also everyone can be one click sending the appeal and the initial denial to their regulator. Like that, I think that kind of movement can quickly create more conversation around the problem at the state level and at the federal level. And I think this is going to be big. You know, my personal opinion is in 2025, earlier part of the year, but I think this is going to be a hot button issue this year and next year because the crisis is like getting out of control. Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you for sharing that resource, and I'm going to put that in the blog. That's really very, very important. Neal, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your story and what your company does, and I'm excited for you and very successful. Folks, you heard Neal, that's spelled Neal, K. Shah today, CEO and co-founder of CareYaya. Check it out. All the information about Neal will be in the blog that Jeannie White writes, who's the station manager and produces the show. And, folks, what a resource. What a tremendous resource. I get excited because this resource is so necessary. I wish it was available for me. It wasn't, and that's why I do the show, folks. I want you all to know about resources. I want you to know about resources and people who can help improve the quality of your life and your loved one's life. That's what I'm here for. That's what Chatting with Betsy is about. And I just thank you all for listening. I want to thank Lillian Caldwell, who's CEO of Passion World Talk Radio Network, who makes this all possible. And thank you for listening, subscribing. If you don't already, Chatting with Betsy is for free on Apple, Spotify, Spreaker, iHeart, Amazon Music, to name a few. And you can follow me on Facebook, Betsy E. Wurzel, Wurzel. And I just thank you, Neal, for having this company, CareYaya, and this counterforcehelp.org. It just sounds awesome. People will definitely need it.
Thanks.
And thank you so much for what you do for caregivers and their families.
Thanks, Betsy. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, you are welcome. My pleasure. And best wishes on more expansion. Folks, students, caregivers, go on the website, www.careyaya.org. Find out how you could sign up if you're a student. Sign up if you're a caregiver and you need help. This is awesome, just really tremendously awesome, and I'm so happy I could share it with my audience. And as I always say, folks, at the end of my show, in a world where you can be anything, Please be kind and shine your light bright, because we need it now more than ever before. This is Betsy Wurzel, your host of Chatting with Betsy on Passionate World Talk Radio Network, a subsidiary of Global Media Network, LLC. Chat with you later. Bye-bye now.